let me start out. How many of you want to actually be making money? From every hands. I mean, as a blogger, I don't mean just generally making money. So some of you put your hands down, so that's kind of interesting. So keep your hand up if you want to make money as a blogger. Okay, you win. Here, $500,000. Okay, now here's the downside. This is not real money. So I'm going to use that as sort of a framing convention for this whole talk, if you will let me have that. And can we fiddle the lights so this is more visible? This is brighter than it was. Okay, thank you. And I know normally, the whole Startup Junkie Underground shtick is that I sit on a stool. It's like, Geek Unplugged. And I'll do that. But I want to start by just going through a couple of slides to make sure we're all on the same page and to sort of, again, set the scene here. So I'm Dave Taylor, and I really thank you all for coming, and I really hope that I have all sorts of great insight and information for you. And I will tell you that because you are lucky and you are here, there will be moments when we will turn off those video cameras, and we will talk about actual numbers, and the people watching this video later will say, oh, damn, I should have been there. And you're here. Good. As we go, I will say that if you have any questions, you can interrupt me, or we can just wait till the end. Again, most of my time will be spent on Q&A, but I know if something really pressing comes up and you can't wait, then ask, and we'll go. So I want to know the very first question everyone's going to ask, or maybe some people will ask, is, well, hold on, what's a blog? And so my visual metaphor for a blog is it's a hammer. It's a tool. And the reason I wanted to start with this is because I think there's a great mythos about blogging, and particularly for people that are in the sort of digital world, that there's this sense of, oh, well, if it doesn't have this characteristic or that characteristic, it's not a blog. And this has been a debate that's been raging for years. And there are people, for example, that will say what I do isn't blogging. And we'll look at that a little later, and I'll explain that when we get there. But I just want to say that to me, it's just a tool. And how many of you have had websites that you hired someone to do it, and then you'd send them updates, and then weeks would pass, and then eventually they'd get to it, or maybe nothing would ever happen? So that's not an incredibly uncommon experience. So the way to think about a blog is, how easy would it be if you had a tool that let you update as easily as sending an email message to someone? You just write new content, you can do it all the time, inspiration hits, you throw out 4 or 5 paragraphs, and you're done, and it's published and your whole website's updated. A whole lot better than relying on some 20-year-old who's really busy playing the latest version of World of Warcraft and really doesn't have time to update your web page anyway. So, wanted to just start by saying that. And I will say that, the next question is, oh, do I need a lot of traffic to make money? And I'll suggest to you that you really don't. And the key concept here is influence. And how many people have read The Tipping Point? Okay? Both of these books, I'm going to say, are required reading for you. So The Tipping Point, the basic premise of the author is that while we think we have free will, and while we think we make decisions based on our own analysis of the situation, the fact is we give our power and our decision making to people that have more influence than we do. And an example of that is simple. Rush Limbaugh says, when I'm in DC, I eat at this steak restaurant, and their sales go up. Why does that happen? Well, presumably everyone who's about to go have a steak dinner says, well, I can make my own decisions. I can choose where I want to eat because I'm an adult and I get to do that. But in fact, they're influenced by people. And well, I will suggest where it goes even further is that we actually have a hierarchy of influence. So not only do we tend to give influence to people that we believe know more about something than we do, but they do the same thing, and up, and it's like a pyramid. So at the top of the pyramid, there are people that have a high degree of influence. An example of that is Walt Mossberg, who writes about technology in the Wall Street Journal. Walt Mossberg by himself can make or break a company. And if you actually were to analyze it, you'd see the trickle-down effect. So Walt will say something about a company, and then the other influence leaders who follow Walt will then write about that company, and then the next tier down, and the next tier down, and pretty soon the kids in junior high are talking about this really cool new company that my dad told me about. Right? So it's really important to say, who is reading what I'm writing? How do I gain that influence? And then I will say the other half of this is that Dr. Robert Cialdini of Stanford has this book is just amazing. The Psychology of Persuasion, it is awesome. You will read this book and marketing will never work on you again. It's really, really fascinating. But again, it's the whole concept of how do we decide what we're going to do? And why are those two things important? Because if you really think about it, if you could influence 10 people that had influence themselves, then you would become a very important person. It's not about numbers, right? You can look at the really expensive newsletters in the investment industry, although they're probably all like jumping off of really tall buildings in Manhattan this week. But those that haven't jumped off of tall buildings have a very small readership of people that pay a lot of money. And then they, in turn, the people that read that newsletter, then tell their friends about investments. Right? There are newsletters that are like $25,000 a year for 6 pages every other week. But it's incredibly insightful. And so while the easy answer is the more traffic you have, the more money you can make as a blogger, I'll suggest to you that that's not true. And in fact, in the entire internet world, there's a wrestling match between quality and quantity. Another place that that crops up is how many people are on LinkedIn? Facebook? MySpace? Bebo? High Five? Okay. So, okay, yeah, Michael, you're on everything, that's okay. So here's the problem with LinkedIn. You get a link request from someone you don't know. Do you accept it and say, now I have more people in my network? Or do you reject it and say, I don't want to connect to someone I don't know? That's the quality versus quantity. That's the same thing we're talking about here. Is it about getting lots and lots of people to come to your site? Or is it about getting the right people to come to your site? You look at the way marketing ad sales are in magazines. You don't need to have the greatest circulation in the magazine world to make a lot of money selling ads. You just need to have the right demographic that people can appeal to. So again, that's another element that we're going to throw into this stew as we go along. And so then the question becomes, how do you gain influence? Again, I am not going to talk about the bulk, question of how do I get a lot of traffic. If you want to get a lot of traffic, go put a billboard down I-25. Come to my website, get something free. And this indeed is a classic mistake that a lot of companies make. And in the heyday of the dot-com era, this was something that was very amusing, is that a company that had a very esoteric product would have a register at our site, get a t-shirt. And what do you think happened? Lots and lots of people that couldn't care less about their product registered to get a free t-shirt. Hey, I'll take a t-shirt, cool. And then they're going to send their marketing literature and no one cares. And they didn't make any more sales, they just spent a lot of money on t-shirts. So it's not just traffic. There are ways you can get traffic. The question is getting those right people. And I will suggest the way to do that isn't to say, I want to create my little island. I want to do something that's really good, and it's the better mousetrap syndrome. Because I'm such a brilliant, insightful writer, and because I have such an ingenious look at the world, that people will naturally gravitate to me and I will reap all of the benefits. In a lot of ways, that's what a lot of people tell you to do, and I'll tell you that's a mistake. The contrary makes a lot more sense to me, which is, you know what, you don't even need a blog. You don't even need to have any online presence as long as you are online. And as long as you're taking place in the conversations that are happening about your product, your service, or yourself. If you have a car rental company, all you need to do is start watching about people that are complaining about car rentals. And then you send them an email with a coupon, for example. Right? So that won't necessarily make you money as a blogger, but it will successfully make you money as a business person. And to me, I think it's important to spend at least half your time writing on other people's blogs. So the way in the blogging world that you join the conversation is you leave comments on other people's weblogs. So how many people read at least one weblog or blog a week? Okay? Well, the rest of you need to get with the ball. That's okay. Those of you that do that, I hope that when you find something that's even mildly of interest, that you have any insight at all about, that you post a comment. So let me give you a couple of quick examples of how that can work. People know Tom Peters. He wrote In Search of Excellence. So I established a relationship with Tom Peters by leaving comments on his blog. He would write about something, and he's at tompeters.com. It's a very interesting blog. He has a lot of other writers too, unfortunately. When he writes, I think it's better. But he would write something, and I'd leave these long, thoughtful responses. I'd spend half an hour writing 2 paragraphs because I wanted to come across from the get-go as here's a guy who really thinks like I do and really gets it. And I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I emailed him and said, hey, I'm writing a new book. Can I ask you to write the foreword? And I established a personal relationship with Tom, and he still now sends me political stuff. But he still sends me email. And here's a guy that, My dad would never have been able to make a connection like that with someone at that level. But I can do that simply by being on his blog. And the fact that I have my own is obviously a nice benefit. A second example is I wrote about, I don't know, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, about a legal issue to do with comments that had been left on someone's blog, and then they were sued over comments that weren't theirs. And I had a retired judge and attorney out of Southern California came onto my blog and left a long comment talking about all the legal precedent and all the reasons that this wasn't actually a legitimate case. And then a reporter from the Wall Street Journal surfed to my site, because I had written about this, reads through all of this stuff, finds this guy's comment, interviews the guy. 3 days after he leaves a comment on my blog, he's featured in the Wall Street Journal. He didn't have a blog, but he participated in the conversation. Very cool. And here's the fun thing, is that this is actually, in a lot of ways, more fun than writing your own blog entries, because you're already part of a conversation. It's like opening up your house and turning on the music and having the beer delivered and saying, I'm ready to party, versus going to a party. And if you're going to do this, I will suggest to you, from a purely pragmatic perspective, that it makes more sense to put your efforts into popular blogs than unpopular blogs. You know, you can go to the restaurant where there's only one person eating, but the chance of you getting food poisoning probably increases significantly. So, I'm going to talk about 2 ways to make money blogging. And right now, the first pass through this topic, I will talk fairly generically. And then the second pass, I will give you numbers and talk about exactly how this stuff works for me. And then we'll look at my blog and I'll talk through some of this stuff. And those of you in the audience at home will sadly not see all of this. We'll talk later. So there are 2 main paths. There are direct and indirect. And direct is you do something on your blog and they pay you money. Indirect is that, and you know, again, I'll dig into this a lot more. Indirect is you write about something on your blog, someone calls up and says, can I hire you? You're really smart. Both of those are very important ways to generate revenue. So here's the first and perhaps most obvious ways to make money as a blogger is advertising, sponsorships, paid placements, text links, and writing for other blogs. There are lots of bloggers out there, or lots of blog owners, that will pay you to write for their blog. That's a cool idea. So again, now you can make money as a blogger without having a blog. Kind of a novel idea. So let's dig into this a little bit. I think probably the 800-pound gorilla in the advertising world, particularly in the blog space, is Google with AdSense. Now, you might have heard of AdWords, AdSense. There's a sort of confusion there. AdWords is, if you're an advertiser, how you sign up and put your ads on the network. AdSense is how you display those ads on your site. So as a blogger, I am a content publisher. I use AdSense to get those ads on my site. AdWords would be how Joe's mechanic shop would decide that they want to give Google $50 to have their little ad show up. So there's a lot of confusion there. But the thing I really like about Google AdSense is it is a configure it once and never ever think about it again. And sort of the magic piece of all of this is that computer systems have become so sophisticated that they automatically do what's called contextual analysis. And they come up with relevant ads for what you're writing about. So if I'm writing about how to download photos onto your iPhone, I'll get ads through the Google AdSense system about iPhones. If I'm writing about how to buy a PC, then I'll get ads about how to buy a PC. Why is that important? Because, as you know, if you were to play a little game where you take 2 very different magazines and swap the ads, irrelevant ads are pointless. No one will click on them. You won't generate any revenue. And so, having said that, let me tell you that the way you make money having ads on your site typically is you do a revenue share. So on Google AdSense, you come to my site, you read about how to download pictures off your iPhone, and then you say, oh, this is an interesting ad, and you click on it. Now you've clicked on it, you've performed an action. That advertiser then pays Google some amount X. Typically, it's in the 10 to 20 cent range, of which some percentage Y is then paid to the person who had that ad on their page. That would be me. Now, Y, instead of a specific percentage, is because people don't know what that percentage is. This is Google. They have their own private 747. Odds are pretty good that they aren't giving you 99% of that revenue. However, even if they're giving you 20% of the revenue, it's really money for nothing. Because once I've just put that into my blog design, I literally never think about AdSense again. It just happens. It just shows up and it pays the mortgage. Very cool. There are also advertising networks. They're a little more complex, but Federated Media is probably the biggest one in that space, and B5 Media, people that have been tracking what I'm doing. I just recently signed up with B5 Media. We've been negotiating for like 2 years now about exactly how that relationship would work. And we're still ironing out some of the glitches, but it's interesting. The idea is that through aggregation, they can go directly to someone like Ford or General Motors, and they can say, we represent 300 blogs that have an aggregate traffic of 50 million, and here's the overall collective demographic slice. Will you pay us $43 for 1,000 or $20 for 1,000? CPM is the word that they use in the advertising world. And so instead of Ford saying, well, we'll give the money to Google and a percentage of that will come to you, now I got someone else taking a piece of the action. But hopefully they're getting me better ads and generating more revenue for me because they are going directly to the advertisers rather than having more complicated middlemen. That's the theory, at least. We'll see how that works out. And then the third type of advertising that I think is interesting are what I call contextual ads. And how many of you have ever been to a site, perhaps mine, perhaps a different site, where certain words are underlined, and if you put the cursor over them, a little window pops up with an ad? Those are context ads. And where I think those are very interesting is because they don't take up any of the screen real estate. So in other words, I can have an article and I can lay it out and design it all where there's no boxes that I have to skip for ads or anything. I already have that. Google AdSense doesn't just pop up on demand, it's always sitting there. So when I decided I wanted to add an additional network, it was like, well, I don't want to get into the CNET syndrome where there are so many ads I can't find the article. How many of you have been to websites where you sit there and stare for like 30 seconds? Somewhere on this page is content. And I am darned if I can figure out where it actually is. Right? And you know that that happens because you go to the site and they'll have like, 10 really funny things. This is page 1. Click for page 2. Click for page 3. All they're doing is trying to shove ads down your throat. It's very annoying. I generally don't go back to those sort of sites. So what's interesting about these contextual ads, and I'll show you how those work in a few minutes, is that they make it very low profile for you to just turn this on. And even if you make $10 a day, hey, it's still $10 a day, really, for almost nothing. And I resisted it for a long time. And I finally one day said, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to blog about that I turned it on. And if I get people complaining about it, I'll turn it off again. And I will tell you, here's the first traffic statistic. My AskDaveTaylor.com sites gets between 1 million and 1.5 million unique visitors every month. So I have a lot of traffic on any given day. I get 50 to 70,000 people, which is very nice. But it also means that I have a really fast test bed. I can turn something on, and if people don't like it, I presumably would hear about it within the minute, if not within the hour. And I've never had a single complaint about these contextual ads, which really surprised me, because I thought there would at least be some purists that would say, oh, wait, it's a word and it's underlined, but it's not a hypertext link? That's just messing with the whole UI. You've broken the whole web, man. I might have broken the web, but so far none of them have figured out how to send me mail to tell me I've broken the web, so we're good. And in that space, there are 2 major players, and there's a third one that's sort of in the wings and might or might not become a major one. Is Conterra and Vibrant Media are the 2 big players. And then there's another company called Infolinks. There are a lot of companies doing this. There have been rumors for at least a year that Google is going to experiment with this with their AdSense system. Because again, you're Google, you have hundreds of the best engineers in the world sitting around playing foosball. You got to come up with something for them to do to make the company money, right? No one's going to quote me on the foosball line, right? You can also do sponsorships. And Tom, there you are, Tom. You recognize that little sponsorship thing, right? That's off your site. So sponsorships are really interesting. If you can figure out how to do this, this is like, pay me $1,000, I'll put your logo on my site. And it's presumably a win-win. And, I won't say too much about this. I don't do this on my sites because mostly I'm lazy. If I was to sell sponsorship, I would sell it a year at a shot because I don't want to every month go and start fiddling with ads and reminding people to pay me the next installment and stuff. But it works for some people. There's also paid placement. So paid placement might be that you run a really popular auto blog, and you write about automobiles, you write about new technology in the automotive world, and some company comes along and says, we have a really cool new technology that'll help people get 15% better gas mileage. Can you write about us? Well, most likely, if you have any visibility in the blogging world, you're already getting lots of bad contacts from PR people. I get anywhere from 10 to 30 a day, and almost all of them are incredibly ham-handed, including like Disney. I've gotten stuff from Disney that's so lame, I've blogged about how bad it is, which, you know, I'm not sure whether Mickey's going to kill me next time I go to Disney World. It's like I'll have a little shiv. Ugh, sorry. But be that as it may, you're going to get a lot of queries. So now, how would a company stand out from everyone else? Well, the way they do it is they do it the old-fashioned way. They staple a $100 bill to it, right? So you can do this. You can just say, I will disclose that you have paid me to do this. But if you want to pay me $100 or $500 or $10,000 or give me this thing in return for me writing about it, send it, send it, bring it on. I do this too. And disclosure becomes really important because if you generally write about things that you just choose yourself, and every so often you're getting paid to do that, then I think it is important for readers to have that expectation set. In magazines, these are what are called advertorials. Now, if you've been paying attention to the publishing world, publishers really love advertorials because they write this incredibly banal content, which is at best neutral, if not glowingly, ridiculously glowing about the companies or the space, and then they sell a lot of ad space. Or they'll get a 16-page insert that's sponsored by Norton, and it's all about viruses. And it's just an ad. But it's an ad that looks like part of the magazine content. And this happens on websites too. This happens on blogs, I think, more than we realize. And it can be very subtle. And I've written a lot about where you should or shouldn't disclose. But for example, let's say that one of my buddies works for a company. And he says, Dave, you write about all this stuff. Can you write about us? Sure, I'll write about you. Cool, we're buds. That's fine, I'll do that. And I'll give you guys, I'll be bias positive because I like you. Should I disclose that? So if I disclose that, then what if one of my friend's sister's dog walker's brother works for a company, and through this incredibly complex chain, they send me something really cool? Do I disclose that? How far down the line do you say, I'm not going to disclose it anymore? Obviously, if you send me money, I have a responsibility, I believe, for credibility to disclose it. But there's a lot of nuances there that make this a more complicated situation than it may seem. Again, if you're a blogger and you choose to have this as one of your avenues for generating revenue, then you need to decide in advance, am I going to tell people or not? And there are some people that don't disclose anything. They don't care. For them, it's all like one big advertorial anyway. Why are you blogging? I'm blogging to make money. I don't care about this space. This is just a profitable keyword. I know people, there are entire conferences with 15 times this many people, and all they want to do is have someone on stage say, mortgage refinancing. That's the keyword of the week. So you go and start blogging about mortgage refinancing, you get some ads, and you will make a lot of money. And it doesn't matter if you care. It doesn't matter if this is something that's ever been of interest to you. It's something where you can make some money at. It's very pragmatic. It's sort of like someone who opens up a Chinese restaurant, but they don't really like Chinese food. They've just done all the analysis and realized that that's the cuisine missing in this town. It's not good or bad. I will say that from my perspective, though, that's not how I roll. Is that good? I can use that phrase? So paid placement is an option. And then there are text links. And this is something that you probably haven't noticed. When you surf the web and go to websites, go to the very, very bottom. The very, very bottom will often have little text links that have nothing to do with that site, or at best have peripheral relationship. So I got this off the bottom of one of my sites. I will show you, I make money through text link ads. And again, this is one of these set and forget sort of things, where on the bottom of my pages, I just insert the little code these guys gave me, and then they sell all this stuff. They sell it, and then they split the revenue with me. So that's a pretty good deal. Now, I will say that in the world of online advertising, particularly in this particular space, there is an issue of what I call gaming the system. Because the reason that these companies want to pay for a link off of this site that says, for example, financial planner or guide to online education is because they want to rank a little better in the search engines when someone searches for that phrase. Okay? I'm not going to spend too much time talking about SEO. I will simply observe that one of the most important ways that you can have your page, and it's not sites, it's pages, you can have your page show up earlier or higher in the search results is by having other people link to that page that with the actual words or phrase you want to rank for. So that's why financial planner or guide to online education or apply for credit cards are these examples. So this is a sort of catch-22 because Google doesn't really like this company. So if you run text link ads and Google actually detects that, then your site will do worse than it otherwise would in the search results. But you can make money doing this. So it's something where, again, you have to make a trade-off. You have to decide, am I willing to be a little worse off in the search results and actually make $300 a month off of these little tiny things on the bottom that no one even notices? Or do I want to have it be more pure for Google and skip this? I'm not going to tell you either way. I will simply observe that on my biggest site, I don't run this, and on a bunch of my other sites, I do. So that was the trade-off I came up with. And again, later I'll show you some actual numbers. Cool. Writing for other blogs. Okay, that sounds interesting. How do you find jobs getting paid to blog? Well, here are 3 job boards I'll suggest, actually 4 places. So Bloggers for Hire is a local guy who's actually right here in greater Denver, Boulder. And then ProBlogger is Darren Rouse. He runs this out of Australia. He's an excellent source for ways to learn how to make money as a blogger. That's the little graphic is jobs.problogger.com. And Marketing Pilgrim, my friend Andy Beal, again, runs a job board. And so here's the thing, is you can also make money putting a job board on your site. I mean, really, there's a lot of different ways to do this. And to some extent, it's just limited by your imagination. So what Darren has on problogger.com is for $50, you can put a job ad out there for a month. So if he gets 10 a month for doing nothing, then he's just making $500 a month or $6,000 a year by just, writing some software or just downloading some software and hooking it in. And I will say that one of the things I think is really important when you start thinking about how to make money as a blogger or how to do, generate revenue through anything you do online is diversifying. Don't assume that it's all about that one magic thing that's going to make you a ton of money. I have really diverse income, deliberately so that if I ever get kicked out of one of the sites, or if some company comes along and says, oh, we've gone bankrupt, we can't pay you anymore, it's not a problem because I have so many other sources. Some of them are relatively small, and some of them are really big. And I will suggest to you again that my magic number is 275. In fact, I was actually going to do the whole Sesame Street thing and say that tonight was brought to you by the number 275. Anyone know what that number would represent? So $275 a day times 365 days puts you at approximately $100,000 a year. So now when we say, oh, I want to make 6 figures blogging, that's really an overwhelming task. Oh my gosh, I have to make $500,000. That's huge. But instead, if I say, can you structure it so you can make $275 a day, all of a sudden this is like, well, I add up all the things I'm doing and I'm at 100 a day. So I'm almost a third of the way there already. Actually, I'm over a third of the way there. We'll work on the math later. And so, to me, I find that very empowering. If I know that on any given day I've hit that 275 mark, then I know that I'm doing better than the vast majority of people in this country. And I can still squeeze under Obama's plan. Yes, thank you. You can call me Joe the Blogger. We'll talk later. So there are other ways to make revenue too. That was just the first pass at it. So another set of ways are affiliate links, ebooks, premium content, donations or tip jars, and ads and email newsletters. And let me give you some examples of each. Again, I really want to get to questions. So affiliate links, the biggest affiliate program is Amazon. And it's sort of ironic. Amazon makes a significant percentage of its overall revenue through affiliate links. And the idea of an affiliate link is, as they say, if I'm going to write a book review, right, I just told you to go and buy The Tipping Point and Persuasion. What if you went to buy that and you clicked on a link where you paid the same price you would otherwise, but now that bookstore gave me 3% or 5%? Well, that's cool. It's a win-win, because now the company that's selling the stuff through an affiliate program is gaining a sale without having to advertise or market. The person buying it is getting the same thing for the same price, so there's no surcharge or tax. And the middleman, the affiliate, is actually getting a little piece of that transaction. Now, the irony of this is that Amazon, because of the space it's in, has almost no margins at all. My friend used to run the whole associates program, and he would just laugh that there were hundreds of thousands of people in the associates program, and only the tiniest fraction of them ever made enough to even buy dinner. Because if I sell that book and I get 7 cents for it, I got to sell an awful lot of books through my affiliate link to be able to go out for a nice dinner. In fact, even to go out for a mediocre dinner, especially in Boulder, but we won't talk about that. There are other places you can find out about affiliate programs. Ironically, one of the biggest affiliate networks is CPA Empire, and they're just about 4 miles from here. So CPAEmpire.com, CJ.com, Commission Junction is another really huge one. And when you join these, you literally search, and it's amazing how many different companies are out there offering affiliate commissions, all the way from insurance brokers and banks with mortgages, to lawyers looking for new clients, car dealers, you name it, carpets, painting, floor refinishing, computer sales, clothes, haircuts, massage, anything you can imagine. You can get a little tiny piece of their transactions. Sometimes it's not a bad chunk. With some things, like with conferences in particular, you might sell a $50 ticket to a conference and get $25 in commission. That's not bad at all. I ran a conference, 8 months ago, where we had $2,000 per seat, and we were offering a $500 affiliate commission. So there were a small number of people that were really hyping our conference. And if they made one sale, they made $500 off of 2 blog entries. You can't complain about that. That's a pretty good deal. It is, however, really hard. The fundamental problem with affiliate systems is that you're selling the same thing everyone else is for the same price, probably to the same audience. So don't go into this thinking that this is that golden dust that I talked about. Let's not skip the golden dust part. Another way to do it is ebooks, right? If you're blogging, you have an audience. Might be a small audience, but now you can use that to sell research reports. Marketing Sherpa is a company that does a brilliant job of this. They write their little blog entries, and in fact, they do these really complex research reports, 180 pages on the best way to make your email convert. And for the first week, it's free. And then after that, it's $300 for the report. So in that first week, all the people that are the influence leaders download it, because they don't want to pay $300 for this thing. And now they tell everyone else, hey, you should go check out this research report. It's kind of spendy, but it's brilliant. And you know what? Then they do it through an affiliate link. So everyone wins. But you can do it with your own content. So the ad I have here is, I actually just hired my sister and said, go through my blog and find everything that I've written about the Sony PlayStation Portable. We'll put it in a big document, we'll save it as a PDF, and we'll sell it for $10. And that's what I do here. And I tell people, when you go to the next page, it will say, all of this content's here on the site for free. But this is a whole lot more convenient because it's in one simple, easy place. You can stick it on your phone, you can read it on your laptop, on an airplane, it's all organized. And I don't make a huge amount of money off of this, but it's probably a couple of $100 a year for something that I did once and have never touched again. In fact, probably should update it, but be that as it may, again, there are other ways you can generate revenue through the content you've already produced. There's also premium content, and this is a hard one to do too. The idea is that as someone who just comes to my site for free, you get this much content. But if you're willing to pay a certain amount extra, then you get the rest of the world open up to you. And this is from a site called SEO Moz, which is search engine optimization. And they don't have a huge market. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of people every day come to the site, of which maybe 200 or 300 people are premium members. But you do the math, 200 people a month times $79 a month, they can suddenly afford to pay half a dozen really good writers full-time wages and have this thing feed on itself. And now it becomes more and more valuable over time. So if you have that kind of content, this is an interesting way to do it. Another model might be, let's say you have videos. So you blog about your videos for free, but to see the video is $5. Or you join our club. For $50, you get all of them for a year. So the premium model is interesting. And again, the sort of magic that you want here is the recurring revenue. So you sign up and it automatically bills them month after month after month until one day they say, what's this on my credit card? Holy cow, this is back like 4 months. Well, I'm going to cancel it. And so now you've made maybe 6 months or a year's worth of revenue off this person, which they wouldn't have done if you say it's $800 a year. Well, I'm not going to pay $800 for this. But $79 a month, hey, if I can just get just a little bit more traffic, then SEO Moz premium content's definitely worth it. So it's a very interesting model. There's also donations. And some of the donation things people ask for are very cheesy. I love the tip jar, no obligation I found on a site. I'm going to guess that that person makes less than $10 a year from that. The background one is a friend of mine, Leo Notenboom, ask-leo.com. And he focuses just on PC support issues. He's a former engineer at Microsoft. And this is, you want to thank me, buy me a beer. And this is his little shtick for this. And they're all the same thing. If I click on his PayPal button on the bottom, I'm going to just send him $18 by PayPal. There's nothing magic about it. He's not going to go and buy a beer. I mean, really, he's just going to take the money and help pay for his life. But as a blogger, it's yet another way you can invite people to support you. And there are some bloggers that have done a very good job with this, and they actually make decent revenue with it. I'll show you in a little bit what I do, and I'll talk a little bit about how I make some money off of that, variously. Another one is newsletter ads. You might have a blog, and your blog also generates email. And that email might be sponsored. And those sponsor ads might be expensive. So here's Peter Shankman, who runs something called Help a Reporter Online. And the very top of all of his emails, he sends out 3 a day. The very top of them are ad sponsors. He typically charges $1,000 for a single placement. So you do the math. That's a pretty good living. And it's just email. And he has a website. But the website really is just to get people to sign up for the email list. And it's very ingenious because, again, he doesn't say, I have the biggest list in the world. He doesn't have millions of subscribers. He has just a very desirable demographic. And so for his demographic, it's well worth it for people to pay $1,000 to put a job, an employee wanted ad in there, because those 30,000 people mostly are reporters or PR professionals or experts in their field. So it's an incredibly valuable demographic versus going and sponsoring Monster Jobs or Yahoo Hot Jobs or something, where you're just paying for massive eyeballs. No, that's round. You're paying for a lot of eyeballs. I don't know how big the eyeballs are. Suddenly I flashed on a bad B-grade horror film. So almost done with my slides. Indirect revenue streams, consulting, speaking gigs, job offers, endorsement offers. When I leave here, I am actually driving to Nebraska between tonight and tomorrow, because tomorrow afternoon I'm giving a keynote speech at a conference in Kearney or Kearney, it's some variation thereof, Nebraska. How did they find me? They found me through my blog. And they are paying me enough that it'll cover a couple of months of my mortgage. So it's well worth the drive, I hope. But the point is that that's a chunk of revenue I got, not because I had someone clicking on an ad on the site, but because I simply have been out there doing this stuff. Does that make sense? And a lot of people that are generating revenue from their blogs are generating it through indirect methods. So when you do all this, don't automatically say, well, I got to put ads on there. How am I going to make money otherwise? Because in fact, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I also get a lot of consulting. A lot of my friends that are bloggers that are really doing that really good stuff on a daily basis and are really thoughtful and insightful and paying attention to their industry get a lot of consulting. Because there are a lot of companies that are saying, I would like to just hire that person to come in for a day and tell us what to do, rather than us guess for a year. Because the benefit we'll get in terms of increased sales, assuming they can deliver, is far greater than what they're going to charge me for coming in for a day, or a half day, or an afternoon, or a week-long workshop or something. A lot of people I know are generating revenue off their blog through indirect revenue streams. There are other ways that I generate revenue. Affiliate links, for example. You know, I don't generally have affiliate links to Amazon because, as I said, they have razor-thin margins. But I have affiliate links to software products where they do have really nice affiliate commission. I have a single blog article I wrote about 2.5 years ago about this tool that lets you take commercial DVDs and repurpose the content to view it on your PlayStation Portable. Very nice piece of software. They're out of some totally bizarre little tiny island in the middle of the Caribbean, because obviously there are a little bit of legal issues about copying DVDs. But I will say that my view on this is that if I've bought the content, I should have the right to put it on any device I want. So whether that's how people are using it, I don't know. You know, it's also not my job to enforce the moral, you know, to be the moral police or something. That's the MPAA's job. But I have this one entry, and I have made consistently at least $350 a month off of the affiliate commissions from one link on one page on my site for 2.5 years. So affiliate links can work, but the reason it works is because I show people and I tell them why it's an interesting product. And I show them the problem that it'll solve and how it solves it. And so I do the sell for this company, and they're very happy to not only send me copies of their product for free, which is nice, but to send me money, which is much nicer. I also have my own tip jar. If you've been to my Ask Dave Taylor site, I have this little thing where it's like, before I add a comment, I want to just say, thanks, Dave, by buying you a chai. And it's exactly, that's where Leo got the idea for his buy a beer. So I got this thing with a chai where you can buy me a cup of coffee basically for $4.50. Or you can buy me a Starbucks gift card for $25. And it comes and goes, but there have been months where every single coffee I buy for that month, someone has paid for through this. Now, on the one hand, that's not covering my mortgage, but on the other hand, it is sort of covering my fix. So that works out pretty well. And there's also, again, sponsored reviews and articles. And, you know, there are some companies, I had this company where they sent me $500. They wanted me to write about this product that converts PDFs to Word documents. I took their money. I said, cool, I'm going to, you know, I will tell you that I'm going to disclose you've paid me. And they're like, that's fine. We just want to get on your site. And then the very first test I did, it failed. So I sent them back an email with a screenshot saying, I can't do this. It doesn't work. And they've never contacted me since. So I assume they're going to send me the next version of the software, at which point I'll write about it. But meanwhile, it's like the ideal sponsored link, right? It's the sponsored review that you don't actually have to publish. So I'm good with that. You guys want to do that? We can work that out. In addition, God, I have so many slides. In addition to the consulting and speaking engagements, I just want to point out that I got a lot of free stuff, and I haven't paid to go to a trade show for at least a decade. So in terms of indirect ways to make money off your blog, these might be really interesting ones too. If you're used to paying $600, $700, $900, $1,200 to go to a trade show, if you could just go to 1 or 2 of those a year as press or media, that by itself might well pay for all of the efforts that you do, right? And free stuff and goodies, I mean, I just Twittered today, right? People who follow my Twitter stream, what did I Twitter is coming to me? Is one of the new T-Mobile Google phones. So T-Mobile's sending me one of these phones to look at. That's cool. You know, so, you know, I'm sure it won't be as good as an iPhone, but I didn't tell them that. And so how about you guys? How do you make money as bloggers? Or how do you get into this space? Or how do you leverage this? Or how do you gain advantage from this whole phenomenon? So that's it. Ta-da, my last slide. I will pull up a stool and pull out my acoustic. And no, I won't do that part. So now it's yours, your turn. So we have plenty of time still. Ask me questions. So the question is essentially, what blogging tools can I use that will allow me to put advertising on my site? And the answer is most of the ones where they host it for you will not include ads. Or if they do, the ads are for their benefit, not yours, which to me is the worst of the worst. It's like you're putting in the work and they're making the revenue and you're paying them for the privilege. So I would say that to me the 2 most credible tools in the market are WordPress and Movable Type. I run Movable Type. I know I'm in the minority on that. WordPress is hugely popular because it's free. So you can just download WordPress and install it on any server that you're on. More likely than not, whatever web hosting company you're with already has WordPress installed. And all you have to do is have them send you to the page that tells you how to configure it and push the publish button and just start blogging. And when you're doing something like that, when it's your domain and you are running your own software, you can do whatever you want with it. You can put on crazy amounts of ads or no ads or have an explicit anti-ad policy, whatever. But if you go to something like WordPress.com, you will make a mistake because WordPress.com is a hosting service that does not like commercial use of blogging. And that is absolutely their right. Matt Mullenweg, who's the head of Automatic, which is the company that invented WordPress, among other things, wonderful guy. He's not a real big fan of people making money off of blogging, generally. You know, he's also the guy who did this world-class work and gave it away, which is great. I'm, delighted that that's there. Don't go to WordPress.com and think you can just start writing about your business, because what they will do one day is someone will flag you, they will read it, they will shut you down, and you're gone. They won't even give you your archives. You will just vanish from the net one day. Not good. So install it on your own server. And when I say that, I'm talking there are lots of hosting companies that will do this. Make sure you can use it for commercial use. If you're going to do something for your business, make sure they're not going to get upset about it. Generally, you're good. I will say that everything being equal, I would err on the side of a hosting company that charges you a little bit versus one that's free. And the reason for that is what I call the good neighborhood problem, or maybe the bad neighborhood problem, is that if you're on a site where everyone can do whatever they want and it's all free and you can go and modify your templates and stuff, then one word, what's it going to attract? Spammers, right. So now you're in a bad neighborhood. You're spending all this effort into creating a really nice store in the mall, and you haven't noticed that most of the mall is actually a crack house. So you're not going to really do very well as a business. So I will suggest instead that what you do is you say, I don't want to be on a hosting service that lets any random junk through. I don't want to be on the same server, for example, as a porn site, because there are a lot of blocking systems that block by what's called the IP address. Not the domain name, the IP address. And all of a sudden you're blocked because suesnaughtygirls.com happens to be on that same server and no one bothered to tell you. So that's an important thing to check out unless you are Sue and you want to run that business, in which case you want to check out that the hosting company will allow you to do that. So next question. I think the main reason that I get really good click-through rates is that I tend to write about things where people are willing to buy to solve their problems. So primarily, if you haven't been to my Ask Dave Taylor site, it's a Q&A site. And it's pretty much all tech related. I do answer some business questions like what can you ask in an interview? And how do you fire someone? But generally it's like, how do I put photos on my iPod? How do I unlock my cell phone that my daughter just locked for me because she doesn't like me? Things like that. And those are the kind of topics that people are willing to pay to get solutions. So if I go and read an article about how to put photos on my iPod and there's an ad right there that says, best iPod photo management software, click here to try it free. Okay, boom, I'll click there. And now I just made a few cents off that deal. Again, the experiences with things like AdSense can vary significantly, just like they can with any other advertising, because it all depends on what audience comes to your site and their likelihood of being interested in those ads. And what's really nice is that AdSense is what's called a cost per click, a CPC ad network. And that's really best, in my opinion, because the other alternative is a cost per action, or CPA, and the idea there is that someone can click through to that advertiser's site, but I'm not getting paid yet. If that advertiser then closes that transaction and sells them something, then I get a bigger sale. But the problem is that my getting paid is a function of their being able to create an effective page or an effective site. And that's a real drag. It's much nicer to say, as long as you can make that little tiny ad interesting, then I'm going to get money. And your job is to figure out how to convert that. But that's not my problem. Does that make sense? So, social networking sites versus blogging. I will say that I am a big proponent of social networking. I am omnipresent. If you go to Dave Taylor online, I finally did that because my slides got longer and longer as I showed all the different places you could find me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and on ad nauseum. The problem is I can't make any money off of any of those, not directly. And so to be able to get direct revenue, that is when I want people to come to my site and see the ads that I've put on it. And so, I really like all of those, and I'm a real proponent of being, again, involved in your community. If your community is on Facebook, then you go and you are on Facebook and you're joining the groups and you're leaving little messages for people and all this sort of stuff, and you have it hooked up so that when you write a blog entry, it shows up in your Facebook profile. So that all the people that are your Facebook friends see your little blog entry. They click on it, now they're on your blog and seeing your ads. So to me, that's how this all sort of feeds together. And in the same way with Twitter, Allison talked about Twitter. What I do is when I write a blog entry, I will send a little tiny status message that says, just wrote about this topic, and here's the link. And people, I can see in my traffic logs, people will then go to the page, and statistically, some of them will then click on an ad. So I don't put out a Twitter message that generates revenue, but I put out a Twitter message that generates action that generates revenue. Does that make sense? So again, I can't encourage you too much to be involved. All the different stuff that's out there, all the different social networks and stuff, get involved. Figure out where your peers are, figure out where your competitors are, figure out where your customers are, and be a presence there, because they're all having those discussions. They're all talking about your business or your product or your service or your competitors or what they wish you did. And if you're not paying attention, someone else is, and they're taking your lunch. So Allison, you are the official answerer of questions. So I know there's more questions, so you're going to have to dash madly over here or do like a ninja flip over the wall. That'd be cool. So then that's more of an affiliate question, is if you're sending traffic to another company that's going to generate revenue off of your traffic, should you get a share of that? And I would say certainly ethically that seems reasonable. If you're working with someone like CBS MarketWatch, they might have policies that say only they get to do that, not you, which wouldn't entirely surprise me. Thanks. And other than that, I think that that's perfectly fine to do affiliate links. And again, the nomenclature for that is generally to put in little square brackets, affiliate link, or something like that after the link. Again, I don't like tricking people, because then it gets to the question of, well, why did you link to them? Did you link to them because they're really good, or did you link to them because you're going to make 17 cents? So now I'm really suspicious. I had a really high opinion of you, but now it's just like, you might be just messing with me to make money, and now it's crass, and now I can't trust you. And authority, credibility, and trust, all of that, that's where the ability to influence people comes from. And so as soon as you lose that, it's really hard to get it back. So I would say take your time and be very judicious about how you try to monetize any traffic you get, and be very upfront. I have some where I have disclosures that I think are fairly amusing, where I'll just have at the bottom, this company sent me this product, but by the way, I would never have had a chance to look at it otherwise, and now you know. And that's all I'll say. But I've disclosed it. You can read that and say, oh, this is bogus. But every single computer magazine, for example, do you think any computer magazines buy anything that they review? Do you think they review things and say bad things about them, knowing that the company wants to advertise in their magazine? Right? Even that bastion of purity, Consumer Reports, they have some problems too now and then, because it's really hard to be pure. It's really hard to have it be where we promise to never be influenced by anything, even though my brother-in-law is the head of marketing for that company. It's really hard to quantify influence. I think maybe the way I would measure that would be through fairly pragmatic means, like when journalists write about my subject, do they quote me? Right? And in fact, one of the ways to figure out who has influence in a market is to read the trade journals and say, who are the people being quoted? Why is she constantly quoted? Every time anyone writes about this topic, it's always about her. Okay, she should be the center of your radar screen, because she's the one that is at that top of that little pyramid. So now you get her to know about you. Maybe you open a dialogue. Maybe you say, I want to interview you for my blog. Right? And now all of a sudden you have access to the influence leader. And if she then writes about you or your company or your product, boom, you just have this nice follow-on influence gain. Does that make sense? So in terms of is there some formula or statistic? There are advertisers that wish things like Alexa did that, but in fact Alexa is so extraordinarily flawed that if anyone's using it, it demonstrates their lack of clue. Sorry, I love all the Amazon guys, but Alexa it's not happening for me. So next question, we have 2 more questions. So you have one of them. Yes. So the question is, if I'm going to produce something that's in a different medium other than print, should I also create a print version of it? And the answer is absolutely yes. Every single podcast, every single video, anything you produce, if you can get text out of it too, send it to India, send it to China, send it to Amazon's Mechanical Turk system, spend $50, $100 each time, get the words and post them too. Because search engines don't have a clue what you're saying at minute 14 in your video. So people will not find your video if you don't transcribe it. So that's a slightly longer answer. But yes, my answer is yes. Okay, so the question is, the question started with an observation, Dave, you write books. And the answer is, I used to write books. And so there are authors that are basically putting all their book content out there as blog entries. And it's an interesting strategy because then what happens is that people leave comments. So you have like a draft version of a chapter in your book, and people leave comments. Then you clean it up and you correct it and you figure all the errors out and you address all of their concerns. And then the revised version is what goes in your book, right? The Tipping Point was done that way. Freakonomics was done that way. Seth Godin, everything he does now is just a compendium of blog entries. Very interesting idea. In terms of protecting your intellectual property, number one, anything that goes online at some level is available to the world at large, and people copy and rip off my site all the time. You know, if they're in Kazakhstan, there's really not much I can do about it. The good news is that Google pretty much says, you know, someone in Kazakhstan doing exactly the same word for word with this guy that's doing it in Colorado, we're going to assume the guy in Colorado is probably the legit one. So the people that steal this stuff, generally, it's pointless exercise. Having said that, it is, in fact, legally enforceable IP, and you can copyright things, and you can put all sorts of limitations on things. If you go to my parenting site, apparenting.com, I worked with a lawyer. In fact, on all of my sites, I have a lawyer I work with who does IP, and I have disclaimers. On the parenting site, for example, it says, by submitting your comment, you give up ownership of your words. Simple as that, right there. Someone submits it, now they're my words. If they don't like it, they don't submit it. Why did I do that? Because I one day think I can get a book out of some of the discussions that have ensued in stuff that I've written on my parenting site. And I will never have someone be able to come back and say, oh, no, you added my comment and you didn't pay me $1,000 for every book that sold. It's good. Well, you know, sorry, you submitted the comment knowing that I had said that you were done. So with that, I'm going to end the questions. Thank you all very much. You've been an extremely generous audience. We can stay for a few more minutes. Hold on, easy. We can then hang out for a few more minutes, but I just want to wrap the video up. Thank you again, Steve, and thank you for Tom and the DaVinci Institute.